Welcome, everybody, to SketchUp 3D Basecamp 2014, the biggest, baddest, most excellent, hardest to get to Basecamp we have ever had. Congratulations on getting here. Who had a tough time getting here yesterday? Yeah, nicely done. Did anybody end up in the ditch and have to go to the hospital? No?
Colorado's weather is something, isn't it? Holy mackerel. Well, thank you so much all for coming. Isn't this a nice venue? It's terrific, eh? I'm so excited. The next 3 days are just going to be a blur if it's any, if we have luck. If it's too much of a blur, though, you may have altitude sickness, and we're going to come back to that later. So let's discuss that. First of all, who am I? I'm Aidan Chopra. You may have gotten some pesky emails from me. I guess I'm officially the evangelist, but for the purposes of 3D Basecamp, I am your cruise director. All right? If you have questions about anything and you see me, then please ask. But we also have a whole bunch of other staff here as well. How do you figure out who the staff are? First of all, we're going to do announcements. That's how I go through my deck. Let's talk about staff afterwards. Let's do this. Does anybody not have a badge yet? No? Okay, let's skip that slide. Oh, I forgot I have a little advancer thing. Cool, let's do this. So SketchUp staff, easy to find. We all are wearing these red bandanas, these nifty red badges. Just please ask us anything and we'll do our best to find an answer for you. The Extension Warehouse is a thing online, right? That's where you go to get plugins. It's also a room here at Basecamp. It's right next to the library, across from hotel check-in. There's empty tables there with power strips. You can plug in your laptop, sit and talk to somebody else if you want. You can just power up if you need juice in your machine. It's also where there's going to be Ruby developers sitting around, so you can go talk extensions if you want with them. The exhibitors. Can we get a big round of applause for the exhibitors who sat outside? I think everybody knows that SketchUp wouldn't be what SketchUp is without the amazing universe of plugins and extensions and all that kind of thing that have been built for it. And the folks who are sitting outside at the table there are at the vanguard of the SketchUp platform universe. It's just incredibly exciting, and we're so grateful to them for coming and building on our platform. So thank you, exhibitors. Please do your best to go out and visit them. Is it okay to take photos and videos? Absolutely. Is anybody here in witness protection at all? Put up your hand. No? All right, perfect. So it's actually okay to take pictures and shoot videos of anything you like. All of the presentations that are happening this afternoon and tomorrow morning are actually going to be recorded with two exceptions. The presentation about Turner Construction and the presentation about Walt Disney Imagineering. Those presentations won't be recorded, and we prefer you didn't take photographs or record in there. Why is that? So, it's not just copyright. If we had gone through big companies' PR departments to make sure that that stuff was okay to record, you wouldn't have seen anything interesting, probably, right? It'd all be watered down. So by ensuring that nothing leaves this conference, you'll actually be seeing some pretty amazing things you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. But we'll remind you before those sessions not to take pictures. Is anybody here a Twitter person or a Google Plus person or a Facebook person? This is the hashtag you can use for 3D Basecamp. It's really hard to remember. If anybody needs a SketchUp Pro 2014 license just for this week, you can go to sketchup.com/Basecamp files. There's a TXT file on there where you can copy-paste in the license information for 2014. All right? So everybody, assuming your computer can handle it, ought to be able to be running Pro 2014 for the sake of the conference. This is very exciting. Since we programmed this conference, we've actually decided to have some product announcements, which you'll hear about just in a little bit, which means we needed more time to present, which means we had to push the presentations this afternoon back by 15 minutes. So this afternoon's presentations will now be at 3:15, 4:15, and 5:15 instead of 15 minutes earlier, okay? The party tonight is actually going to be in this room, but the room will be transformed into a magical wonderland of fun and excitement. It starts at 7. We'll serve dinner till 8:30. There's going to be a photo booth, so wear your bikinis. And please bring your badge. So that brings me to sort of the bad news. If you have a spouse or a loved one or a partner or somebody like that, they can't come for dinner. We need a big, oh, like this, ooh. Unless you hand us a crisp $100 bill at the door. Anybody planning to do that? Really? Okay, well, we'll talk about it. Excellent. Actually, nice. Is this Autodesk University? That's cool. Oh, sorry. So that was, we didn't, unfortunately, they can't come. So they can fend for themselves. Probably after 8:30, though, if they want to come, I think they can, because we're going to be playing SketchUp Pictionary. Was anybody here in 2012 for SketchUp Pictionary? Okay, so what you do is you find a partner that you want to throw down with. You'll each get a word, a similar word. You draw on 2 big screens at the party. Everybody watches. And the person who gets their thing guessed the first, you get a drink ticket as a prize. Huh? And you get to rub it in that person's face forever, which is perfect. Also, the rules, no 2D. So no just like outlining with a little push-pull extrusion, total cheating. You have to model in 3D. Totally awesome. Okay.
I challenge Dale Martin for a rematch.
What's that? Yeah.
Really?
And then after the party ends at 10, we have an after party. We'll be adjourning to the little patio with the fire pit outside the library downstairs, okay? And that'll go as late as we can possibly stand. This is really important. We're all on Wi-Fi here. We're actually all on Wi-Fi. Our presenters are also on Wi-Fi. So I would ask you to please log off right now. It's okay probably for phones, but if you've got laptops and things, turn off the internet on your machines and we'll have enough resources to drive the computer up here. I'm going to take 10 seconds. We're going to sit here uncomfortably and pause while you all log off. I don't see anyone logging off. Pretend to log off. Logging off, logging off. All right, everyone's logged off? Terrific. Let's talk about our speakers for today. So we're actually going to have 3 speakers during this session, and I'm going to introduce them as they come up, all right? Our first speaker this afternoon is Mark Sawyer. Mark is the general manager for general contracting instruction management at Trimble Buildings. It's way more exciting than that seems, I absolutely promise you. Mark's going to get up and talk about some really neat stuff. And so I'd like to welcome up here right now. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Aidan. I'm wondering if he really has any idea at all what I'm going to talk about, but maybe everything's really cool stuff. There's a number of places I could start in addressing you, and I thought I would start by admitting something first. I was standing in the back of the room watching everybody filter in, and I'm saying to myself, why am I getting nervous? I've done this 100 times, maybe 500 times, I'm not sure. And I realized it's because the more you care about the people you work with and the team and the audience you're speaking to, the more it matters. I think it's why people get choked up at wedding presentations and the like.
You keep talking, I'm going to put you on the screen.
No, I'm only going to be talking about me without the screen for a second.
Okay.
So this is ad lib.
There we go. You need to be able to drive these things, though.
Oh, I'm going to drive when I get to my part.
There you go.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Yeah, we're kind of doing this thing.
Well, that break really helped. I have my breath back now. So
you need to click up there.
Oh, I see. I have to drive from over here? Okay. So just a little bit of history, and maybe the best place to anchor that. So that was a way of saying, by the way, I think this is a really special event, a really special crowd. There's always been a buzz with this event and this crowd, and I'm delighted to be invited to be with you here today and to be a part of it, despite the drive yesterday, which I truly enjoyed. I wanted to start this by saying I'm wearing a 9-year-old shirt. This was a shirt that I wore at a trade show back in 2005 when I was the CEO of then Atlas Software. And thank you. It was pretty short-lived, and I'm going to come all the way back around to why am I here again today as a Trimble employee, because as Scott Green, my good friend, many of you guys know Scott, once said, Mark, you can't make this stuff up, and it's really true. But back in those days, I did a presentation to a group of people, and I I kind of wondered, why am I using PowerPoint? I have this wonderful visualization tool in front of me called SketchUp. I'll make my presentation with that. So I did that. I think as we fly through this model, which I downloaded off the 3D warehouse, if you get airsick, just close your eyes, count to 6, and I'll be on the next slide, okay? So just remember that. I tried to make it as slow as I could to transition around. So we'll use this warehouse model Manhattan to make today's presentation. But Chris Keating and Aidan and a number of other folks asked me to stand up and maybe use that personal history to tell you a little bit about who's Trimble, very briefly. I won't do a full website commercial here. And why is SketchUp now a part of the Trimble portfolio, and what does that mean to all of us? So I would like to do that and review maybe a little bit more history than that. I'll start right here. So as we go in and pick up our first slide, hopefully that's clear enough. I think a lot of people in this room are familiar with this timeline. Beginning in 2000, a transition to Google in 2006, a transition to Trimble in 2012. And by no means would I encourage you to use the math to extrapolate. There's another event ready to happen in 2018, okay? But the missions of the kind of the whys and wherefores, SketchUp was started, Brad Shell, Joe Esch, a number of other really industrious and bright people in that founding team to create a tool that they dubbed 3D for the rest of us, including me, so that I could put together a presentation using it. Google's interest was pretty simple, actually. There were HTML authoring tools that allowed the world to create data that Google could index and create searchable and serve back to that world. Then came images, videos, maps, and eventually an Earth model. And in all those cases, their business was, let's put tools in the hands of people to author data, we'll organize it, index it, and serve them back that data. And that drives all kinds of interest and, as we all know today, revenue and stock prices and everything else. And simply enough, 3D models was another form of data that they wanted the world to be able to author easily. And they scanned the horizon and said, this SketchUp stuff is the best ever. Let's add that to the portfolio. It's that simple. There really wasn't any further evil plan to monetize this or put up billboards on Three Rivers Stadium or anything else. It was just, let's give the world an authoring tool so that whether they're creating a city model today to get planning approval and using Google Earth to do it, or they want to model Rome in 200 AD, let's just give them the tools to do it. And then, as you'll hear from me now, the Trimble interest in the product is a bit more strategic, a bit more central. I think something to really be excited about. It's back to 3D for the rest of us, but as a strategic anchor in the company's strategy. And that's what I'd like to talk about. As I was putting together the various scenes, I kept colliding with buildings, so I had to kind of zoom out and then zoom back in. So, if anybody knows a better way to do that, I'm ready for a lesson. But I got there. So to really understand SketchUp in Trimble, you have to stop and just for 1 minute, let me give you the quick thumbnail on Trimble. Trimble was started in 1978. How many people in this room were sailing ships in open water in 1978? So you remember Loran. Trimble made a Loran navigation system. By the way, I wasn't. That was just a cue for you to hold your hand up, okay? Trimble made a Loran navigation system, and in the early 80s was approached by the US Department of Defense to participate as a commercial entity in a DoD initiative to put up a GPS network called Navstar. So the government was launching satellites, had military purposes behind it, but they wanted commercial partners for, as you know, more congressional funding. And they invited Trimble to participate in that, which they jumped on. And we're all kind of glad they did, because then the company became very integral to GPS applications, making technology and solutions built around GPS, and evolved into a company that really focused on the solutions where location can be an important component in solving an industrial problem. So that has led us into 5 what we call key franchises. The first one is the geospatial, kind of the heritage of the company, and that is land surveying and the acquisition of field data to place on cadastral or the other type of references. The second one is heavy civil construction. Think of horizontal things moving a lot of dirt. The third is, they roughly occurred in our company in this order. The third was agriculture, what we call precision agriculture, so that equipment in the field knows where it is, knows what chemicals to apply in what quantity based on the patch of the field that you're in, and similarly monitoring yields based on what area in the field you're in. So pretty sophisticated, interesting stuff. For a growingly hungry world, I think this will be key. The fourth franchise was transportation, where whether it's a fleet of UPS trucks, Mayflower movers, or the concrete coming to the site on your project, it's important to know what's on board, who's driving it, and where are they. So the various location data, telemetry back to some central server, that type of thing. And then 2012, again, 6 or 7 months after acquiring SketchUp from Google, Trimble announced the fifth franchise, which franchise translates as Big Business Group in Trimble, called Trimble Buildings. This is where SketchUp resides. About that same time, when, a little bit of backing up on my history, when Google bought the SketchUp team, took everybody inside, I didn't go with that. I went off and started a separate company called Vico Software. And on two totally separate, unrelated tracks, unless somebody in this room was doing some lobbying that I don't know about, Trimble acquired SketchUp from Google, and 6 months later acquired Vico Software. So now I'm back in the same Boulder office with my former colleagues, two different groups, two different divisions, but wearing the same shirt. So it's a pleasure to both be at Trimble again. I kind of want to explain to you how that happened and why. So to understand this fifth group called Trimble Buildings, you have to know a little bit about the pieces around us. There are things like construction logistics, field data collection, machine control on motor graders, cat tractors, front loaders that basically control the device, tip the blade, if you will. The driver just drives, and it can tip the blade to final grade, for example. Photogrammetry solutions. We own an RFID company for locating equipment or putting it on your badge and locating people indoors and outdoors. And all the way down to a joint venture with a company called Hilti. We really haven't announced too many results from this yet, but some things that are coming is if everybody needs to know where you are, seems like the tool should know where it is too. So it's an opportunity to make intelligent tools that know a little bit about where they are, including I'm in your truck and it's the end of the day, and when you drive off, I made it in. It would be nice to know you have everything. But there's also other production applications of the same technology. That's kind of our shopping cart of various technologies within Trimble that we can use as a Trimble Buildings group to pull those pieces in our software together to make solutions for our customers. So let me describe who those people are. The Trimble Buildings group is comprised of, it's not really an org chart, but it's close. And that's not the point. It's comprised of 6 organizations. There's an architecture group, that's Chris Keating and the SketchUp team reside there. There's an engineering group, mainly focused today on structural engineering as a set of engineering solutions. I'll comment more on that in a moment. There's 2 different divisions aimed at the needs of the general contractors and the subcontractors, 2 varying levels of planning and detail and execution. And there's a owner division group focused on the needs of the owner. All of that underlined by what we call the DBO platform team. And here again, the SketchUp engineers and market managers are a major component and contributor to what we do in that group. Stands for Design, Build, Operate. And the key here is there's a strategy behind all this. Number one is each one of these 5 vertical divisions has the charter to make solutions for your customer that doesn't compromise them because you've got a product that also needs to do 5 other things, okay? Give your customer a focused solution really aimed at what they do for a living. Then make sure that there's some Trimble magic dust sprinkled on that solution. Where can location information augment the productivity of your user or the safety of your user or the efficiency of their project or their execution? And then the third component is and participate on this common platform so that other members of the project team, whether it's the building owner or the general contractor or whomever, have controlled access to the same data, have means by which data can be exchanged from one application to another, read SKP files to VCO files for quantity takeoff, or to Prolog for RFI tracking, all kinds of different products here that need a data interchange, but you don't want that data interchange to be so invasive to the application that you start to ruin the unique benefit of the app for that user. So that's kind of the strategy. Is there's 3 pieces to this, and it is the Trimble building strategy. This group was announced in November 2012, so we're the newest of the Trimble major divisions. It's reporting to a guy by the name of Bryn Fosberg, who was up here addressing you at Basecamp last year, briefly describing it. And in order to really appreciate the importance of it to the company, it's a little over 900 of our 7,000 employees. It's a pretty substantial number in terms of our worldwide footprint and our sources of revenue as a company. And it's represented a pretty large investment, as the company has either built internally or externally acquired and then assimilated pieces like SketchUp, Tekla, Meridian Systems, PlanCal, QuickPen, no less than 11 companies coming together to form these 6 groups. And your SketchUp team, I can say this as a third party from the outside looking in, is strategically the core of the architecture group. And of course, we do know SketchUp is applied to more than just architecture, but that is the group that drives the architecture strategy. And your SketchUp team is also the group that owns the lion's share of design and development of this common platform that the rest of us use, with the experience they have in horizontal technology and productively meeting the needs of the user with systems that don't get in their way. Managing complex data can easily get in your way. It takes a certain form of art to keep that from getting in your way. And we feel that the SketchUp brains in the room, not without your coaching, by the way, are really well enabled to do that. So that's where we focus. So having said all that, having apologized for wearing a 9-year-old shirt, the last thing I just want to do is say, on behalf of Trimble, on behalf of the Trimble Buildings Group, on behalf of my former SketchUp team, Chris Keating, Aidan, everybody else, thanks for coming to Basecamp. Thanks for surviving not only the marijuana laws, but the traffic laws in Colorado. Not everybody can do what you guys just did. You should be really proud. I hope you complete the second half of that journey, make it home safely, and have a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'd just like to say that as a SketchUp person, we're awfully lucky to have made the transition from Google to Trimble. There's less food and fewer free massages, but our engineering team has more than doubled in size. We're going to annual releases now. Everybody in favor of that? Right. And Trimble has been, on that front, more supportive of us than Google ever really was. I mean, Google's an amazing company, and they were terrific. But from a user's perspective, you want SketchUp to be part of Trimble. I would like to introduce, very briefly, our next speaker. A good friend of mine, Mr. John Bacus, is our product management director. Everything you love about SketchUp, and a lot of the things you hate, no, I'm just kidding, is right here. And he is going to tell us all about some really, really exciting new stuff. So let's give him a big hand.
Thanks, Aidan. Is this thing on?
Yeah, I'm just going to make sure. You talk and introduce yourself, and I'm going to make this work.
I try to do as little that you hate as possible, in spite of what Aidan said. Okay.
That works.
Great. Okay, so thanks for coming. This is always fantastic to stand up in front of a room full of SketchUp users, and I'm amazed at how many faces I recognize. I mean, it's been years we've all been kind of working together now. I'm just curious, how many of you, this is your first Basecamp? That's amazing. Okay, how many of you were at our first Basecamp? Also amazing. So I look forward to talking to you about all kinds of crazy stuff over the next couple of days, and I have some slides, and I'm going to talk about a few things right now, but I'm not going to go too deep into anything, because my hope is to set up a couple of really great arguments that we'll have over the next couple of days. So let's see how that goes. First of all, I want to go a little bit narrower in the focus on the timeline. What have we been doing lately? Okay, so all the way over there on the left, we moved to Trimble. Everybody remembers that?
It's because I know we have anal retentives in the audience.
I'm not one of them. Okay. Okay, so shortly after that, we released a version of SketchUp, our last build of SketchUp 8. It wasn't terribly exciting. It basically had a different logo and was built on a different server. We had a Basecamp, the last Basecamp. Who came to the 2012 Basecamp? Lots of folks. Okay. That was kind of our coming out party for, hey, now we're at Trimble, we're not at Google anymore. But then we got to work. SketchUp 2013 came out, and at the same time, Extension Warehouse, brand new thing for SketchUp, a way that extension developers could find users, a way that we could help users find extensions that made a difference to them and easily install them and keep them up to date and all that kind of great stuff. And I'm going to talk a little more about Extension Warehouse today. SketchUp 2014 just came out not too long ago, our second release since the last Basecamp, and with it, brand new 3D Warehouse. And I'm going to talk a little more about that. And then here we are today, Basecamp 2014. And I'm going to make a short plug for Trimble Dimensions, which is Trimble's big user event that happens this fall, and I think it'd be great to see some of you guys come to that. We'll be there. I'll be there. There'll be bulldozers and stuff, too. So key to this whole thing has been incredible support from Trimble, and they really have kind of given us a new ability to go faster, to get a bigger team. We're financially successful in a way that we probably could never prove we really were at Google. And we're finding new markets all the time. So Trimble has been really a great place for us to be. And I hope that I'll be able to show you, why. So that said, SketchUp's been around for a while, and we have a few principles that just never are going to change. First of all, SketchUp is simple, and that's not a penalty. Simple is actually powerful. It actually means you can use the tool, and that's a great big deal. We're never going to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. SketchUp isn't expensive. It costs some money, and we appreciate all the great support that our professional users provide us, and by the way, that helps us keep the lights on and keep the development teams working. But we're kind of a different product in a lot of ways. SketchUp isn't complex, but at the same time, it's very flexible and it's very easy to extend. And all of the great work that the extension developers have done is kind of proof of that. We will always support this kind of end user development, that our user community should be able to shape the product into what suits them best. And at the end of the day, SketchUp is for getting real work done. Where work, I could use a lot of other words, it'd be a lot funnier, but SketchUp's for really getting it done, and that's a big deal. Performance is an issue that makes a difference to everybody, and we always work on it. And at the end of the day, SketchUp is 3D for everyone, and that's really never going to change. But you already know that because you're here, or at least you probably do. So you're wondering what's new. So let's see what's new. Well, SketchUp 2014 is still relatively new. Let's talk about that a little bit. We've got 2 versions of SketchUp now, and they're different. They're going to get more different. SketchUp Make is our free product, and it's designed for makers. How many people in this room would say they are a maker or have heard that term before, know that they are? We've got some excellent makers here today, and you know who you are. Yeah. SketchUp Make is the product for you. And its goal is really to be a simple but effective and fun tool for designing projects so that it's easier to build them when you actually get out and start doing it. We see it used a lot among 3D printing enthusiasts, CNC fabrication enthusiasts, including, I'm not going to talk about this, but I really want to. game modders. There have been people modding games in SketchUp for a long, long time, but this is kind of the best group of people. Wait, what are you doing? You're doing what? So there's always somebody doing something crazy with SketchUp. And this is the product for them to do that. So we also sell SketchUp Pro. And SketchUp Pro is where all of our revenue comes from. And it's a product that we've been building for many, many years. It's really designed to be a tool that helps people communicate ideas, complex ideas, out to the field, out to wherever they're going to get built, out to whoever's going to tell them they shouldn't get built, really to solve problems, spatial problems. And that's what SketchUp Pro is for. And these days, we talk mostly in SketchUp Pro about construction documentation in layout, information modeling, which is kind of a new idea that I'm going to talk a little bit more about today. And of course, interoperability, getting your data from SketchUp into that other guy's program, or getting the model from that other guy's program into SketchUp. The design, construction, and operation of buildings is at the heart of what we're doing. Many of us have backgrounds in architecture or engineering, building construction, and so that comes out. That's at the heart of SketchUp. Now, we know for sure that isn't what everybody's doing with it, but fair warning, architecture is where we come from. So documentation, if you've been sticking around and kind of paying attention to SketchUp releases lately, you've seen that we've been adding a lot of features to layout. After we joined Trimble, we decided that it was time for layout to become a tool which was fully capable of doing high-quality, professional construction documentation. That was not something that Google particularly wanted us to work on. Trimble likes to see us working on that, and so we are. And just a couple of things that have come. Hatching, of course, was probably the top request for layout. We've done a lot of work with, it's not glamorous, but you use it all the time, labeling tools. We've added some kind of dynamic text properties for page numbers and project names and dates and things like that so that they auto-populate in your layout documents. And really, this is the beginning of a long roadmap of features that we're working on all the time. So you should expect to see us continue to work on that for some time now. I think the thing that's fundamentally different now is that whereas layout was originally designed to be a tool for design documentation, now we're kind of saying it's for design documentation, but also for construction documentation. We want to take you farther down the design path, get you a little bit longer down the job. So the next thing I want to talk about is information modeling, and I guess everybody in the room probably knows about BIM by now. Anybody not know what BIM is? Should I define that? Actually, I don't know what BIM is. And there was an interesting observation in a presentation one of my colleagues at Tekla gave several months ago that every presentation about BIM begins with a slide where you define BIM. And perhaps that's not a great sign. But let's talk about the way that we think about this on the SketchUp team. So I've got a SketchUp model of a thing over there, and we all look at it and we know that it's something. It's a teapot, right? But actually, SketchUp doesn't know that. What SketchUp thinks that is a little bundle of polygons. Human beings know it looks like a teapot. So if we add a little data to the model and we say, you're a teapot, it turns into a kind of a dynamic component, right? So we did dynamic components quite a while ago, and dynamic components were SketchUp models that had a little extra attribute data on them. They could be a little parametric, they could carry a product name and manufacturer, that kind of a thing. But this was kind of lonely, this was kind of isolated. So what we did in the latest version of SketchUp was we added the notion of referencing in third-party classification systems, schema. In other words, a definition of data. What is the definition of the data that surrounds the thing? It's confusing. But now we can kind of make objects which have meaning outside of SketchUp. And they can even take you towards the construction of a real object. So you could use any model, any SketchUp model. You could use any data on that model. And really, you could use any classification system. And for that reason, you could kind of build anything you want, right? So it's a very open system. On the other hand, if you happen to drop in a schema that everybody knows about and agrees on, like let's say IFC, You can classify objects according to that. And you can make IFC objects that come out, or you can make buildings that come out of SketchUp. This is a relatively new idea, and it's something that that I think deserves some solid arguments at this Basecamp. So I encourage you to come and find me and tell me whether you think this works for you or doesn't work for you, or what you think you could do with it. And I think I'm missing a slide, but let's keep going. So SketchUp Pro has always had extra capabilities for interoperability, and this is really a part of what we've always been doing. It's possible now for the first time, because of this system of classification, information modeling, all of that kind of stuff, it's possible to export an IFC file from SketchUp. And in fact, here's one that I opened in Solibri. I used somebody else's program, so you wouldn't think I'd baked it. But that's actually an IFC model generated from SketchUp, and it has, a column in it. I think this is kind of a new idea because in the traditional, what I'll call big BIM apps, you can really draw anything you want, right? As long as it's a wall or a slab or a column or any other predefined building object that program knows how to make. And SketchUp is going to do something different. So it leaves you to be a bit creative about what your wall ought to be, what your wall ought to be like. If you want it to be tilted, make it tilted. If you want it to be battered, make it battered. If you want it to be made out of Swiss cheese, do that. But you can still call it a wall, and you can still operate on it in the same way. And of course, this freedom comes with some responsibility, right? You can certainly make bad decisions. The tool's not going to keep you from doing that. But I do hope we'll find some time to talk about this more informally, and please just grab me anytime. Okay, let's talk about Extension Warehouse. So we launched Extension Warehouse just under a year ago now. And out of curiosity, how many people here have installed an extension from Extension Warehouse? That's a pretty big number, honestly. So thank you for that. The way, as it happens, and this happened about a week ago, we have actually served 1 million downloads through Extension Warehouse. 1 million hands went up over the last, really it's been about 10 months. 250 certified extensions in there coming from 150 developers. And let's hear it for them. So how many, I want you to, if you're here today and you've published something on Extension Warehouse, stand up. Stand up and take a bow. I know there's a bunch of you here. All right. So let's look at some examples of things that people have done on Extension Warehouse. Who here has used one of these gizmos? Yes, Omar. This is a portfolio of laser scanning devices that come from Trimble. Trimble sells these devices. And they're great, right? I mean, they can make, actually, this is Omar's house. They can make point clouds with 11 billion points in them that describe real-world objects to incredible levels of detail. Outside and inside, this is the inside of Omar's house. Yeah. But wouldn't it be great if you could use that data in SketchUp, right? So a lot of people have been asking about that ever since we started at Trimble. When are you going to have some kind of a solution that allows me to use point cloud data in my SketchUp models? So we have a solution that we're launching today, built by Trimble. It's called the Trimble Scan Explorer extension, very glamorous name. And you can get it on the Extension Warehouse. And what does it do? So it takes point clouds and lets you make things like this in SketchUp. This is kind of a line cloud, I guess. So this is actually construction lines that were automatically or semi-automatically discovered inside of the point cloud at places where planes intersect. One of the great problems with point cloud data is that there's just too much of it, and it's impossible to find. It's like finding a needle in a haystack to find exactly the right point to tell you, the dimensions that you want. So This is still early days and kind of a new idea, but here's pulling back a little bit to see some more of that. I believe this is actually Richard's house. Richard, are you here? Where's Richard? Yep. Okay, so now you know where he keeps the silver. And you can actually, using this extension, you can actually generate polygons right inside of the SketchUp model that fit to that point cloud very, very precisely. So you should try it out. If you've never tried point cloud data before, this is an interesting place to experiment. And this extension and all the other extensions and all the great work that's done by our extension developer community are kind of made possible and underpinned by the efforts of a SketchUp team that we call the extensibility team. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the semi-invisible things that they do on your behalf. So first of all, this is the team that brought you Extension Warehouse. This is the team that looks at every extension that's submitted and says, yep, this isn't going to erase anybody's hard drive, and yep, this seems to do what it says it's going to do. This is also the team that manages our SDK. And what's an SDK? I'm going to talk about it more in a second, but this is a library that we give away for free to anybody who wants to use it that allows other people to write applications that read and write our file format natively. We're not at all protective about that kind of stuff. This is also the team that brought you Ruby 2.0. How many Ruby developers, do you like Ruby 2.0 or do you not like Ruby 2.0? Certainly it's different. Thumbs up. I don't see, this could be selective visualization on my part. I don't see any thumbs down. Okay, some ambiguity over here. So it's wildly different in a lot of respects, but it has some great advantages. This is also the group mainly that manages our open source efforts. And if you were at our last Basecamp, you saw us release what was at the time kind of our first experiment in open source kind of partnered development with our developer community. We released an STL importer and exporter. How many people in here have committed a change to the STL importer exporter? I know a couple of you have. I know you have. Okay. There have been about 50,000 people that have downloaded that extension, which is a lot of use. But we also released some developer tools. And I should mention as well that our product manager for the extensibility team recently returned to us from the Google is Bryceosaurus Rex. Bryce, are you here? There's Bryce. Welcome back, Bryce. His neck isn't usually that long. It's only after, full moon, whatnot. Okay, so here's what's happened with the SDK. We rebuilt it. It's now available in a 64-bit mode for those who need that sort of thing. And it's actually, I don't know how many of you knew this, but if you look at the list of people that consume that library to provide native SketchUp capability in their applications, there are a lot of people that do it, but obviously Trimble do it, but Bentley does it in MicroStation, Nemacek do it in Vectorworks, it's used in ArchiCAD, Autodesk use it in AutoCAD, in Revit, and in 3ds Max, McNeil use it in Rhino, and it's really used all over the place, and it's kind of a hidden success story, I think, behind this team's efforts. Ruby 2.0, actually, of the folks that raised their hands, who has built something that required Ruby 2.0? Okay, all right. Well, it's new and modern, which is fantastic. It's faster, it uses less memory. It's easier to debug. But I think the last point here is the most important, that there are dozens of libraries for common tasks like OS access, like network access, the kinds of things that developers need to do all the time. This is way easier now than it was previously. The SketchUp developer tools were launched at the last Basecamp as well. They've gotten pretty good adoption. There's been pretty good community attention around them. But there's one piece that's been missing for a long time. And I'm pleased to be able to say that today we are actually launching a debugger for the first time for our Ruby developers. So for the people in the room who are not Ruby scripters, what this means is your Ruby scripts will never crash again. Right? Actually, what this means is that Ruby developers can actually step through their code now, and they can see what's changing where, and if something breaks, they can tell when and where and under what circumstances that happened. And so it really makes development of much more complex extensions a whole lot easier. So that's available today. This is what it looks like running in NetBeans. It integrates with most of the most popular IDEs that you guys are probably using. And it's available today, and we've open sourced it as well. So it's on GitHub too, and if you want it to do something it doesn't do, please step in and make it do it. Okay, 3D Warehouse. 3D Warehouse has been around for a long time now. We launched it back in 2006. It was one of the first things we did when we got to Google. It contains everything from aardvarks to ZZ Top. I've been working on that for a while. It's now operated by Trimble, and that's the news on 3D Warehouse. The reason it looks different today than it did 6 months ago is because it's different. I mean, it's different actually from the ground up. When we left Google, we had a limited runway. We could keep it running on Google's infrastructure until we had equivalent infrastructure standing up at Trimble to take it over, and we have that now. Thanks to the efforts of a really global team. We had folks working obviously in our Boulder office at Google as well as at Trimble. In fact, Brian Brown, I keep staring at Brian. He's our Googler that was on the other end of that transaction. So we had fantastic support from Google all the way through the transition. But we also had a team working in Atlanta, Georgia. We had a team in Omsk in Russia. We had a team working in Chennai. Who else? Where else were they? They were kind of everywhere. It was an amazing effort. And if we had this fantastic day where the old warehouse kind of turned down and the new warehouse kind of turned up. You got to understand, the warehouse is never down. I mean, there's always thousands of people using it at any given moment. And we managed to not go down for more than, I think, what was it, guys, 5 minutes? I think it was 5 minutes through the transit, 6? 6 minutes. And there was a collective deep breath at the end of that. That was quite a project. It was kind of like we moved a big chunk of the internet from here to here. The most important thing is that we now are in control of the code. We're in a process of continuous improvement on it now. We are doing bi-weekly pushes. New stuff is changing all the time. And that's a great place for us to be. So this is what the new warehouse looks like. That's our home page. One of the things that we've added is we've sort of changed. We have always had these great collections of building product manufacturer content, but we're really shining a spotlight on it now. So for example, here's what the Herman Miller's collection looks like on 3D Warehouse. And they have, tons of chairs, and they're canonical representations of these objects. This is a chair that one day I hope I will be able to. Who here has one of these chairs at home? Who wants one of these chairs at home? Yeah, okay. Okay. So one of the things you'll notice right away probably is that the thumbnails are bigger, they're rendered kind of more attractively. We don't have all the compression artifacts and things that came from trying to store data too efficiently probably. And also, we used to have this embed code previously, we still do. So you can take that thumbnail and you can put it in any website that you want. And I think I'm going to try to do a demo here. And I can't think of what could possibly go wrong. Great. OK, so here we are on the live warehouse. And this is really the coolest thing that we've added. How many of you have clicked that little button so far? Yeah. So turns out that the internet is kind of ready to do 3D natively now. It's been a long time in coming. There's a technology called WebGL that is built into every modern web browser, as we used to say at Google. I'm running in Chrome. Chrome runs it fantastically well. I'm able to tumble this 3D model, in orbit and pan and zoom and all of the SketchUp things without bothering to install a plugin or anything first. It just kind of, you come to the page and it just works. It's the way it's supposed to be. If you want to use these things, you can embed the 3D viewer as well. And you may have noticed that we've started putting these things in our blog posts. They've also started turning up in a couple other locations around the internet. We think this is going to be very popular. So if you want to do something simple like put up a portfolio site, this isn't a bad place to start. Okay, let's see if I can now get back. So of course, 3D Warehouse is still full of models of cities. Are there folks here who are deeply involved in geomodeling and working on buildings for Google Earth? Anybody? It was kind of a sad moment when that pipeline shut down, but the building models are all still here. And this is an example of the work of a urban planning group in Christchurch, New Zealand, named Zeno. They've actually modeled all of downtown Christchurch. And they're using this for post-earthquake recovery efforts too, which is pretty exciting. So that's all still there. So I was trying to think of a way to give you a sense for how big Warehouse has actually become. When you're just looking at it through your screen, sometimes it's hard to appreciate how far it goes on the other side of your screen. So let's give this a try. So this is actual logs data that we've been collecting, and I think this was collected over the period of about a month. And it's every place in the world where a model has been downloaded. The size of the circle is, more downloads. I think that's staggering. I mean, it's basically every place in the world where people have computers, they are now using 3D Warehouse. And the reality is, and this is kind of an interesting number, we just measured this actually, we have about 1 billion models that have been served from 3D Warehouse since we launched it. And I said about, which is a weaselly term. I'm going to give you the real term if Barry is here. Barry, are you here?
Yes.
Barry, call it out. What is it now?
169,787,425.
Okay, so check it out. We're not quite there yet. But we think that we'll be there within a month, which is really, that's really kind of it's hard to even say the word billion without kind of saying billion. And every one of those models is going to a SketchUp user, like you. Every one of those models was created by a SketchUp user, like you. So let's hear it for the modelers. So I want you to stand up if you've published something on 3D Warehouse. So we're just getting started again with 3D Warehouse. Very excited about that. I'm happy to talk to you at length about any of the changes that we've made. Mike, I want to call out Mike too. Mike Tadros, are you here? Over there. Mike Tadros is also happy to receive your feature requests and constructive criticisms. Mike, thanks, Mike. How many of you saw Mike's videos when he was doing the go to school stuff?
Stand up, Mike.
Yeah.
Stand up. People want to see you so that they can come and find you and talk to you at the Basecamp. Stand up, Mike. All right, there's Mike. Terrific.
I'm pleased as punch that Mike is our product manager for the web and mobile group, which includes the 3D Warehouse. Thanks. So you'll notice that I said Mike works on the web and mobile group. How many of you have iPads? So I'm happy to announce that today we are launching our first tablet viewer. You can view any model that's shared on 3D Warehouse with your iPad, anywhere, anytime. Share navigable models with clients, one-on-one presentations, whatever you want to do. It's available right now in the App Store. Has anybody bought it yet? Anybody downloaded it yet? All right, it didn't leak. Hey, what's this that I've got under the table? Mike, is this your iPad that has a passcode on it? Can we switch the video? Okay, so here it is. Our first mobile product, really. I mean, I hope that it's not our last. We've got some other ideas as well, but we wanted to share this one right away. So basically, what I can do here is navigate through any collection of models that are on 3D Warehouse. We use 3D Warehouse as the back end that processes and gets everything ready for viewing on the tablet. But let's try one out. This is actually the coolest model I've seen in a long time. Any fans of Vermeer in the room? Yeah, Vermeer? Let's hear it for Vermeer. Isn't that hot? So I'm doing that here. This is the iPad. Okay, I think I'm over my time anyway. I want to show more about that, but all of our product managers have iPads. They'll be walking around, and you can play with it if you want. We're very pleased to have been able to finally do this work. Great thanks, of course, to the team that helped us do it, too. How many of you guys are here? Mobile folks? Who's here from Spine? Yes. Great work. Okay, let's switch back to the laptop and now really thanks. So thanks for coming to Basecamp. Thanks for helping us out with SketchUp over the years.
Thank you very much, John. That was great. Can we actually get, because I think this would be really useful for attendees, honestly, the product managers at SketchUp are your best contacts for, hey, I'd really like to see this in SketchUp, or can you explain to me why this was done, or will you have a drink with me, or I have an extra Audi R8.
Or can I buy you a drink?
Or can I buy you a drink?
Can I buy you a drink?
So can we actually get all the PMs?
I'll introduce them.
Yeah.
So you just met Mike. Mike, stand up again. Mike Tadros, web and mobile team. So 3D Warehouse, the new mobile viewer, and Extension Warehouse. He's good at answering those questions too. Bryce Stout. You all know Bryce because you probably deleted him at some point. But Bryce is on the extensibility team now, so developers, Bryce is your guy. Also very knowledgeable about Extension Warehouse. Sandra Winstead. Sandra, are you here? Sandra is responsible for all the awesome work that's been happening in layout. So if you have questions or comments or friendly critiques about construction documentation layout, Sandra's your person. Richard Hassler. Richard is the guy behind the Scan Explorer extension and incredibly knowledgeable about all things Trimble hardware related, including total stations. Richard may be, how many registered land surveyors are there in the room? Richard's your guy for all of those kinds of topics. He knows exactly where he is all the time.
And not just because of the ankle bracelet.
Nice. So that's Happy Team PM.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Come find us and talk to us anytime.